Together, we can help cure childhood cancer. Call 414-978-9500 or donate online at 1029thehog.com.
Like you just said, it's the Bob and Brian MACC Fund Radiothon, brought to you by Window Nation. This hour is brought to you by Lakeside International Trucks. The painting by Christopher. Phone numbers 414-978-9500. We are joined by
Timothy.
What is this? This is a song from the
Sounds like 70s TV.
60s. Yeah, it was from the 60s. It's Timothy. It's a song about a mine cave-in. By the way, Tim Van Vooren is here. Good afternoon.
Nice.
Afternoon, Tim. Good to see you.
Segue there, a mine cave.
Let me just explain it, because I can't believe nobody has heard of this song. I remember it vividly from when I was a kid. It's a song about a mine cave-in.
The only song I know about a mine cave-in is Big John.
No, well, this
There
one
was
is
another
Big
mine caving
John.
song?
There were at least two of them then.
what happened. How did Big John end?
He got underneath the fallen timber.
Yeah,
and he pushed it up.
and
Everyone ran out and escaped.
that's not what happened in Timothy.
Except for
Big John.
Yeah. At the bottom of his mind lies a big man.
Yeah, was that Tennessee Ernie Ford?
No, that was Jimmy Dean.
Jimmy Dean, of course. Yes.
Who was Timothy? Who sang Timothy?
That was done by the Buoys. Yeah, the Buoys.
Sure.
Had to be a number one.
Sure it was.
Now, okay, that's a sad story, but Timothy had a more brutal ending. There were three guys in the
More
mine.
brutal than having a mine collapse. He saves lives and gives up his life, and the mine collapses.
Timothy didn't really volunteer. They just ate him.
They just
ate him.
what?
Mine cave-in. Joe and me and Timothy were in the mine. When it was done, there was no sign of Timothy. It was about cannibalism in a mine cave-in on Top 40 radio in the 60s.
Well, that's upbeat.
That's fun.
Wow, what?
I encourage everyone to listen to the entire song by the Buoys.
I'm not going to
Timothy.
listen. I'm going to just look up the lyrics.
Okay,
Exactly.
Yeah. Look it
That's
up.
a way better move.
By the way, Tim Van Vooren, nice to have you. I believe this might be a first, actually.
First or second,
We
yeah.
don't get a lot of FaceTime together.
Right, absolutely.
we-
excited to be in here. Excited to be squeezed between the pyramid and the globe. You don't see a globe that often.
Was a talking globe
We
once upon
talk
a
about
time.
things that happen all over the world, and
we
it's
like-
helpful.
Yeah.
And educational.
Find out where it is the thing is happening.
What with all our rock gear on the walls, to give the studio attitude, we don't have room for a world map in here, so we just went for a...
Boy, it starts right out.
globe.
Trapped in a mine,
Yeah.
what had caved in.
Yeah, go ahead.
And
I need the
everyone-
definitive line that says that they ate him.
They don't come out and say we ate Timothy, but they're talking about it's just meat or something like that. And yeah, yes,
You have to infer that Timothy was eaten.
Timothy was
you.
eaten after the mine cave, and they were Joe and
Oh well, here's the verse that kind of
Okay.
hungry as hell, no food to eat, and Joe said that he would sell his soul for just a piece of meat.
Oh my God! This cannot be real.
it was on the it was played all the time. What year does it say it came out? 67, 68?
And that didn't give kids nightmares?
Totally.
Singing this on their bikes and
Who's
stuff?
listening? They're just
I knew when I was a little kid.
Where were you? Where did you live?
Who gets songwriting credit on that from the Buoys?
Man,
If they're-
Dracula.
I bet the royalties. I would take them.
recorded by the Buoys as a single in 1970.
Oh, is it 70? Was it that late? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rupert Holmes got.
Rupert Holmes.
The pina
colada.
Him?
Would you like some Timothy with your pina colada?
Oh my God.
Wine or dark?
Here. Yeah.
It's hard
to understand.
Very hard to understand.
Yeah. But there's
Keep reading, Brian.
But there's a part in there where they go, Timothy, where on earth did you go? Timothy, God, why don't I know? You know, it's they kind of are coming to grips with the fact that they ate a coworker that day. But who hasn't done that at work? Come on.
My stomach was full as it could be, and nobody ever got around to finding Timothy.
He was in his stool.
Yeah. I think I just passed Timothy's class ring.
Anyway, I hand chose that song for your introduction, Tim Van Vooren.
Who knew that Rupert Holmes was so into social investigation?
Yeah,
right.
That's very
Between
deep.
the Pina Colada song,
Honest to God.
Timothy.
Right.
Yeah.
Way deeper than you thought.
Yes. So
Dysfunction all around in his world.
I guess.
who knew when you got up this morning?
Cheating and Eating by Rupert Holmes.
Yeah. Let's have that.
That's the name of his documentary.
It made it into the top 40.
Yeah, it was on the radio.
Because everybody in 1970 was into eating coworkers, right? We had Ed Gein. We had,
Just did I pick the wrong song? Should I have tried? Should I have picked a different one for Tim?
leave cannibalism out of the next theme song.
I know something now that I didn't know when I woke up this morning. So mission
that's true.
accomplished.
I've always been a fan of the wide-ranging nature of your program.
Thank you.
A little altered by that today.
There's not another radio station in the country talking about this song.
No, there isn't. There isn't. I guarantee that.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably every podcast in the world, nothing is talking about this.
Wow.
And it's just your intro song. We haven't even started in. We haven't even gotten into the conversation
Straight
yet.
down.
Get into the
much time
conversation
do you
proper here in a minute.
I do have to point one other thing out before we start talking with our friend Tim. And Tim, you are welcome to say whatever you want at any time. This is your time.
Thank you.
On the Radiothon, the MACC Fund Radiothon. Again, the number, if you want to donate, 414-978-9500. You can check everything out at 1029thehog.com. The 7-Up can collection, Tim, you see right there? You know the story behind that, right?
You fill me in. Give me the details.
It was just as a boy, I drank all those back in 1976. My brothers and I saved the can collection. Figured,
One can represents each state.
Yeah, I see the Uncle Sam in the
Vintage.
States. Yeah, I remember that stuff going on.
You remember this?
Oh, yeah, it's like the Schmidt beer, the different Schmidt beer can
Oh, I don't remember that.
designs.
Yeah.
What? I've thrown you guys?
Yeah, they had different
My brother had a beer can collection.
Your can designs were there.
This is where you got to go, Eric Johnson deep here.
There was a bunch of like fish and stuff
They were
like
all
that in there.
outdoor. I bet they were 25
They
or
didn't-
something.
yeah, they didn't-
beer can collections were big. And did you
They
get
were.
that can? Did you get that can?
Right.
Schmidt.
Right.
Yeah, Schmidt beer.
Yeah.
Wow.
They didn't assemble to form a lake scene or something.
No, you couldn't spin it around like that.
Whitetail.
Running away from you.
That right now is going for $1,150 at 1029thehog.com. You can bid on that. Now, the other can collection there you see is
And it's called The Other Can Collection.
right. You can bid on that as well. Now, Tim, if we can get you to sign a Dr. Pepper can and add the 5th can to that.
You're going to be a second layer there.
It was
we've got a
going-
base, and you'll be on the second layer.
It started out at $10. It jumped up to $15.
Okay.
The current bid on the other can collection right there is at $500.
Wow.
It is
It
not.
is. Yes.
What?
It's at $500. What is it? 550? 550? 510. It's at 510 now.
Exponential growth.
Yes.
That's
Wow. People are pulling their money out of the
They
stock
are.
market.
They are.
Because they're afraid of what
Yes.
Trump's going to do.
Yeah.
But they're going to load it into this can collection.
Yes.
When
Yes.
times are hard, you buy precious metal. Well, that's aluminum.
Wow.
That's why we need to keep delivering things like Timothy during the radiothon.
I guess so.
Paid to thank them.
kind of a leap, but okay. I'll go with you there.
Yeah.
I like the
The
pull
dots
tab
get
too.
further apart as the show goes on.
I got you. I like the pull tab. That's that. You don't see much of that anymore.
Yeah.
Either. You gotta,
Pick up that top can of the old 7-Up can collection
Carefully.
and feel what the cans used to feel like when we were kids, Tim.
Ooh.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
That's some heft.
That's the tab in there because that's where we were told to throw them so a fish didn't eat them.
Right.
You remember that? Well, we have to get away from these pull tabs. Fish eat them. So,
And you were concerned? So that's good. So that's nice.
Or
how about
don't-
the jolly good jokes in the bottom?
People
Do you remember
make
those cans?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Look right in there. You can read a joke.
Yeah, that's right. And there'd probably be some dad joke like,
I remember. This is more of a bottle memory,
Okay.
but as long as we're kind of going,
Sure.
it does have something to
Cannibalism
do
to
with
bottle
sports.
memory. Why would
You
this
could
stop?
collect all the Green Bay Packers in the rubber
Oh, yeah.
you peeled out of the cap.
lining of the
Liner,
bottle
yep.
cap from
Yeah.
Coke or Pepsi or
It was Coke.
somebody.
It was Coke. I had the sheet that I stapled them to
Yeah.
the sheet.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were busy.
Like Gal Gilling. We didn't have the internet, Terry.
Right.
We had 2 channels.
Right.
and you had a radio that played Timothy.
Yeah.
Well, that was a hit. Yeah, you would staple those to the sheet of paper like Gail Gillingham. Mm-hmm. Who else?
I think it was about that time I noticed that the Packers always had someone named Bob, Robert, or Bobby Brown on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember a lot of guys in that era.
Yeah.
Yeah. Malcolm Snyder was in that era.
Yeah.
Alden Roche was in that era.
trying to think.
Big hair. Alden had big hair.
Alden, yeah, he had a lot of hair. Yeah, you're right. Where are those guys? You know what I mean?
You tell me. You're the sports guy.
I don't know.
Why don't you?
We're doing draft diaries. We've been doing draft diaries for the last, I don't know, 6-7 weeks here leading up to the NFL draft.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, well, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
It's been one of the most enjoyable things I've done in a long time, catching up with guys who were drafted into the NFL. What was their draft experience?
Yeah.
I just talked to Matt
the day
Hasselbeck
like?
yesterday, and I've talked to John Anderson, and
Have you talked to someone who waited all day, and you talked to someone who was drafted right away?
Yeah, like we had Scott Wells on this week.
Yeah.
Scott Wells, the year he was picked, there were 255 draftees. He was
Yeah.
251. And he said he was told he was going to go in the 3rd round. He's like, I'm watching in the 3rd round. I'm furious. What's going on? My agent misled me. What's going on here? He gets picked 251 out of 255. So that's a different experience than, you go in the 1st round.
Yeah, the Brady
great.
Brady Quinn.
Brady Quinn.
The camera's just focused on him as he's sliding down the board, and they finally said,
Yeah,
"Let's get him
gonna be
out of
like
here."
top 5, right? And then he wasn't he? Brady Quinn.
Tim,
Brady, he slid. Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, never really had the career you thought he
And
would.
then when we
coming
saw
out
him in
of
the
college.
NFL, we knew they were probably right. You were probably right. He was not a high number
He
one.
was with Jimmy Clausen and Ron Paulus and
Yeah,
those
so-
big names that never quite played at the next
But
level.
I'll bet you there's not an NFL player that's ever been drafted that can't tell you where they were picked or what number
bet
they
you're
were.
right. Yeah,
they
absolutely.
know exactly where they went and who went before them and who went after them.
Yep, and to a man, the ones I've spoken with say just what an opportunity. You know what I mean? It's somebody wants you, and you've dreamed your whole life, and you worked for it, and just to get that draft choice into the NFL, and to talk, to the guys more recently, you guys know what the draft process is like now. All the analysis ahead of time, and the combine, and everything's coverage. Back, I talked to John Anderson, of course, I used to work with at Fox 6, Waukesha Zone. He said, yeah, I was on the radio. Eventually, Bart Starr called me. And then for reaction, I got called by the Waukesha Freeman and the Milwaukee Journal. That was it. One on TV, one on ESPN, NFL Network, break it all down. It's great. So neat deals.
What brainstorming session and who came up with this idea for draft?
Yeah, we just kind of kicked it around. One of our, news folks, Brian Graham, in there, who used to work in sports. He's like, I'd kind of like to see some of this stuff, and we're like, let's see how that goes. And it's really been great. And we've talked to like Brian Calhoun, Lily's owl, profiled by Brian Calhoun. If you remember, was a great college football player.
Had a knee injury in Detroit
and didn't play much in the NFL, but remembers that opportunity to get in. And then we're doing one coming up in a couple weeks with Brandon Cruz, putting together Hunter Wohler for the Badgers, now going through this process. And is he going to be picked, and what's his situation going to be? So it's really been fun leading up to what's a monster event here at the end of the month.
What they used to, back when the AFL and NFL were competing, they'd try to hide guys from the other league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hotel rooms and, camps.
Great stories of underhanded things happening. And did he get this guy on contract, signed before the other league has their picks? And
Literally.
Literally.
Teams would show up with a bag of money, like, here, sign this, here's your money, right?
Basically,
when they were trying to beat each other.
Particularly the AFL teams, because they were trying. They were the renegade league. They were trying to get guys picked off, and they were up against the establishment. And
who was going to take Joe Namath in the NFL?
I don't remember who it was, but I remember obviously there was a bidding war for him, and he was, he was a known name coming out of college, but he blossomed even more because of ending up with the Jets. Let's face it.
Here's the other discussion. Should Joe Namath be in the Hall of Fame?
He doesn't have great numbers.
If it's based on numbers, he shouldn't be.
No, but he transcendent figure for the AFL and then the Super Bowl and New York.
He won the biggest game in AFL history.
And to this day, people remember that game.
Yes.
The guarantee of it.
Yeah.
So you can... Does that put him in the contributor category? Football-wise, he didn't play long enough. They won the one Super Bowl. His numbers weren't great.
But it's a moment.
But it's something else.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
It's right. It's
absolutely.
He went to the St. Louis Cardinals.
In the NFL?
The NFL side.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Because both leagues would draft their
Right.
guy.
Right. Well, in
it
the
was
NBA,
a matter of who could sign him.
in the NBA, the Bucks drafted Julius Erving. Yeah, he would have been okay.
Yeah. Can you imagine Kareem, Oscar, Julius Erving, John McLaughlin?
Would have been okay.
Bob Dandridge, Greg Smith. What a bunch that would have been.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Tim, I don't know if you have you heard of texting? It's
really neat.
Yes,
Okay.
it's you can send a message to somebody on their phone, and all day we've been inviting texters to send a question and then carry
For each of our guests.
Yeah,
that have
all right.
We do one text question.
All right.
And I'm going to break that rule right now because I'm going to do 2 text questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I had this worked out.
So late now to mind. You already let it out of the can.
I say no.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how much I hear that, Tim. You wouldn't believe how much I hear that. Okay, question for TBB from a texter.
Mm-hmm.
Who was your toughest player interview? And will you model the Bob and Brian MACC Fund T-shirt this year?
Never mind. One question.
Yeah.
Never mind the second one.
That last one was from me. Okay, all right. So just who was your toughest player interview?
Ooh. And those come in a lot of flavors because guys just don't have very interesting answers or they might be kind of
Hostile.
Answer how you will.
Difficult.
Yeah.
Is it live? Is it videotape?
Right. There are a lot of things that go into that, and so I'm off the top of my head here. I'm going to put Sterling Sharp near the top of the list.
a tough interview.
A tough interview because you knew he didn't want to do it. I did interview Sterling Sharp. Now, later in his career, he would not talk to the local media, state media. He felt he had been burned his rookie year by a writer, and so he adopted this stance that he would not talk to local state media, but he would talk to the national media.
Well, here you are.
That's a little bit hypocritical, in my opinion.
Do you know what was said?
It wasn't even that. It was like, he didn't have that many touchdown catches. He wasn't that much of an impact player. It wasn't anything personal. It was just, it kind of goes back to what you guys said about the draft position, and these guys look for motivation or a slight or whatever it was. So Sterling Sharp would be on that list because he was just grumpy about it, and then eventually it got to where he wouldn't talk to me either. But I did interview him early in my career at WITI, so he would be on the list. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Terrific. I respect him as a player. That's all great. He was a terrific player for the Packers. He was not a terrific guy to deal with, so he would be on that list. And then later, of course, he went into the media. Okay,
That is the part.
And absolutely same with Randy Moss.
Randy Moss was just all over the place. He would sometimes talk and he wouldn't. Sterling Sharp had this policy, and you were kind of like, well, I mean, what? Because I work in the state, there's something against me.
And his brother was in the media too, so
Still is.
I used to turn the Tom Pippins would always laugh at me because in the sports office I'd turn the volume down when Sterling Sharp was on. Well, you can't go in the media.
Did he go to ESPN first, or you go to NFL Network? Is that where he was?
I think NFL Network was his second spot.
Okay, because I remember when he turned up somewhere, ESPN or wherever his first job was, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Now you can't shut this guy up?
Yeah.
He wouldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, and again, I do respect what he did as a player for the Packers, and I'm happy for him that he's into the Hall of Fame.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely, terrific, and all good on that front. But he would be on my list for the texter. Carrie, he would be on my list.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he'd be all-time number one, but top of my mind, that's there.
That's the
Solid
one.
answer.
That's the one that pops up anyway.
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
All right. So speaking of the Packers, what are they going to do in the draft? They didn't make any splashes in free agency at all. Like Santana said, a little surprised / disappointed. There was nothing done in free agency, really.
The funny thing is they actually spent a lot of money in free agency. They spent a lot of money on an offensive lineman that really nobody knew much about. So they're kind of, I think they were
now
and the defensive back.
Who moves over to center now? because they got
Elton Jenkins goes to center, and Aaron Banks is going to play left guard.
How talented are you when you can play all those positions on the offensive line?
Absolutely.
Seriously, they're all completely different disciplines.
And the coaches often tell us in Green Bay, well, we just have to get the best 5 out there, and these guys are interchangeable. I'm thinking, interchangeable? You got your left, you're blocking to the left, or you're blocking to the right, or you're snapping a football. I don't understand how that's all one skill set. So they do a great job of cross-training them up in Green Bay. They really believe in that versatility.
The description I heard of switching positions is like playing left guard, right guard. What's the difference? And I can't remember. I think it was Josh Sitton said, imagine you've wiped with your right hand your whole life, and now you have to wipe with your left. Mm-hmm. That's how different it is.
That's a Josh Sitton comment,
yes.
too.
Does that sound right? Was that Sitton who said that?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that makes it pretty simple. Yeah. Go ahead.
Right.
It makes it pretty base, I'll say.
Well, everyone can understand
simple,
it.
Yeah.
So
it's relatable. So I would not think they're going to go for an offensive lineman in the opening round. I would think, you hear about wide receiver because they didn't do anything offseason with
not going to get a
Hardman.
They're not going to grab a wide receiver. The Packers just do not make a splash in the first round.
And I think they have, an edge rusher concern or a cornerback concern that you'd go in the first round. I think they'll get a wide receiver early, but I'd be surprised if it's in the first round. But the Packers don't. They don't like to do what people think they're going to do. They just don't. They believe in their tenets, and they're going to follow those through. And if they, on their board, if a wide receiver's sitting there, this could be the year they pick one because you just don't think they'll pick one.
And when they do
an edge rusher, really, they just grabbed Van Ness
2 years ago.
That's on their list.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's number one. I think cornerback is going to be there because I don't think Jair Alexander stays on the roster. He's still on the roster, so that could turn out to be, another one where they kind of threw a dodge at us. But I don't think he's there, and I think you need, another young, fast cornerback, even though the league is kind of changing to more of the running style than the passing style as it was a few years ago.
If they grab a wide receiver in the first round, Aaron Rodgers has a gripe. I'll give him that one. Now you pick a wide receiver in the first round, don't you think?
I can understand it. Yeah, no doubt about it. Obviously, they never did it for him, but they had, as the Packers say, we had a lot of success in the second round, and they're exactly right at that position.
Middle rounds is where Ron Wolf and I'll even say Gutekunst has done really well. Ted did okay there.
Yep.
Again, middle rounds.
Those second-round wide receivers, just Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams. I mean, you go right down the list there.
Draft and develop, draft and develop,
sure.
draft and develop. It's still what they're doing, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And they believe there'll be some guys. Jordan Morgan was the first-round pick. Everybody knows his name. He didn't really play much last year, right? You had the Marshawn Lloyd running back situation. He didn't really play much. And then you got another third-round pick, Tyron Hopper. So those are 3 top 100 picks last year who barely played. So they may be looking at internal development with these guys and health and say, it's almost like we got some extra picks this year because these were high selections last year that nobody really saw.
Do they cash in on those picks this year? As far as them playing more?
I mean, maybe that's it. They say Jordan Morgan will be in contention to get a starting, to fight for a starting job on the offensive line. And, if Marshawn Lloyd is healthy, he should add something to the running back room for sure. He hasn't been able to stay healthy so far. And a linebacker, you pick in the top 100 who's great on special teams because he can nail people. Seems like you ought to be out there somewhere, right? Some of the time, he's playing football.
Could use some somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Did the Brewers right the ship over the last couple of days?
They took some pressure off, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, the first 4 games, it was not pretty at all. You probably heard, up here at your station from the ballpark, it was, the unrest. But the last 2 games, it's amazing what good pitching will do for you. They got good pitching. They win a game. They get great pitching yesterday. They win another game. Everybody loosens up a little bit. The games are played differently when you're in them instead of being blown out right off the bat.
I'm sure.
I guess I feel better that if they're trying to, get their feet under them at the beginning of the season, played the American League teams fine. It was like, what?
Yeah, so far.
6 in a row.
Yeah, so far that's what they've done. And, you lose 3 in New York against the Yankees. Well, a lot of people are going to lose in New York against the Yankees, National League or American. That's part of it. You're not losing to the White Sox, right? So, the Braves are winless. The Braves have very high expectations this season. They're winless. And one of their players has already been suspended for 80 games.
And he's out for the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And he can't play in the playoffs either.
Absolutely. And, you look in the National League West, Dodgers are unbeaten. Padres are unbeaten. I think the Giants have one loss.
One loss, yeah. They have one loss between their top three teams in that
come
division.
Come on.
Yeah. I don't think they'll keep that pace going. I have my doubts.
They have to play each other, if nothing else, sooner or later.
So what are you going to work on now? What's coming
Going
up?
to the ballpark right after you guys, yeah.
Oh, so we're right on your way.
Yeah, it's
Brewers,
time's out
Reds.
great.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You going to stand around the batting cage a little bit tonight?
Yep.
Chew the fat?
Yeah. Hopefully, anyway.
All right.
that's all part of the fun. But speaking of fun, I mean, come on. Come on. I've already hit the
good move.
point.
What a friend.
Well played.
You can share this while you're standing around the batting cage. Tell Murph.
Yeah.
Hey, Murph, you ever hear the song Timothy?
Murph, you're of this era. 1970. Cannibalism. What you got on that?
Timmy, thanks for
Start
stopping.
with the mind collapse. And then move to the
It gets worse.
cannibalism.
Hey, Murph, it gets worse. Not just a mind collapse.
Thanks for helping us out with the MACC Fund,
See you guys.
Tim.
Good luck with
We
awesome what
appreciate
you
it.
guys are doing.
You can make your donations now, 414-978-9500, or you can just go online, 1029thehog.com.
Help give the gift of hope. More of your favorite athletes and special guests still to come during the Bob and Brian Radiothon to benefit the MACC Fund, presented by Window Nation on 1029 The Hog.